Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. Today is Friday, April 3rd, and we're doing our regular NBA preview show with Troy West from allplayswin.com. In part one right now, we're going to just do an overview of the 10-game card. Troy West, thanks for being back with us.
Hey, thanks a lot, Pete. I appreciate it. Yeah, the NBA, as we know, Pete, a lot of crazy things going on with not necessarily teams taking it, but just the inconsistency of rosters and starting lineups and minutes played. We saw it last night with Golden State, but hopefully at this point we can dissect some of these teams that are up on the rise and have some up stock versus the teams that have some down stock.
All right, well, let's take a look at some of the interesting games on the card. The first one, I want to ask about Toronto and Brooklyn. Both of these teams are looking like they're going to be playoff teams, right? Brooklyn is a 2 or 2.5 point favorite. The Raptors are already in, while Brooklyn is still sort of fighting it out for the number 7 or 8 spot. So I'm thinking that maybe Brooklyn has a little bit more to play for here. Both teams are playing well. Toronto's covered 3 in a row. The Nets have won 5 in a row, and they're 3-1-1 against the spread in those 5. Still, I'm just thinking it's a low total. Brooklyn has a little bit more to play for, maybe a road game. Maybe this is not one of the games where Toronto gets up fully for it. Why is Brooklyn such a small favorite here, -2 or 2.5?
Yeah, I have this one circled, Pete. It's an interesting game. I can't figure it out because, like you said, Brooklyn's been playing really good basketball. They do have a lot of motivation at this point. They're trying to get that consistency going. And like you said, Toronto's been all over the place. We know the absence of Kyle Lowry's really hurt this game. And Brooklyn's stock is up right now, and just -2, almost a pick 'em at home. Seems like a pretty solid bet for a team that's got to keep winning. As you said, Toronto, I do know that they're trying to get some consistency going and trying to get some wins going into the playoffs. But it seems to me like Brooklyn's got a lot more going on here than Toronto.
And then another game that I'm thinking about is Chicago. I liked them on the overnight. It was -9. Now they're up to -9.5. Detroit's banged up. They're coming off a big blowout loss where they only scored 78 points. And Chicago's coming off of a straight-up loss. And, they're probably going to, be primed to get a win here. Problem is the spread is very high, -9.5. But sometimes in situations like these, a high spread like that is not something to be afraid of. And in light of, how banged up Detroit is and how much of a mess they kind of are right now, maybe a Chicago -9.5 still a good play?
Yeah, no, this is actually one of the other games that I also really did like, Pete. Is like you said, Detroit extremely banged up. They've been all over the map. Now they're on the road with the Chicago team, who really is, other than Derrick Rose, they're getting healthy at the right time, and they're playing pretty good basketball at the right time. I like them at home. The fact that we got to win by double digits really doesn't scare me a whole heck of a lot, especially in the NBA. So it seems like a pretty good bet, Pete. Chicago stock on the rise, and Detroit's, all over the place with their stocks. This looks like a pretty good bet.
All right, and then a similar game is New Orleans at Sacramento. I like them at 5.5 on the overnight. I admit I bought down to 5. Now it's up to 6.5. Sacramento, Rudy Gay is out, and they're just playing out the string. New Orleans still in the playoff hunt. They're getting healthier. Is that? But again, just like the Bulls game, the spread's a little scary. It's a pretty healthy road favorite line, and New Orleans isn't exactly the Spurs here, or Golden State. So is New Orleans -6.5 maybe still worth a play?
Seems like a pretty decent play to me, Pete. I mean, Sacramento is kind of, as we talked about one of my previous calls, been kind of playing a little bit of a spoiler role. But like you said, without Rudy Gay, one of their top scorers, they're still without Derek Collison. As I stated earlier, we've been against Sacramento several times throughout the year. Just the inconsistency of what George Karl has to put together a quality starting lineup, and then you get a team with Anthony Davis starting to play better. They're getting healthy at the right time, and they're trying to make a playoff push still. Seems like a pretty safe bet to beat a Sacramento team that really doesn't have a whole heck of a lot going for them.
Yeah, that's the way I was thinking. And then there's 3 totals that I was leaning towards, but I feel like I'm, have just reading the wrong way on every total in the NBA right now. Let's see what you have to say about it. I was thinking about Washington over, the Knicks in Washington. Washington's trying to their offense has disappeared at times this year, and I believe they're trying to establish some kind of offensive consistency, in preparation for the playoffs. I like their over in against Philadelphia. We have a very similar game here, very similar total, 190.5 or 191. It has gone down from the overnight, which was 191.5. So I think I like the over 190.5 in New York and Washington. I'm also thinking, look, I got super burned on the OKC under. Now they're playing Memphis, though. We know how Memphis plays, and you got to figure that OKC lost the game to Denver, so you got to figure they're going to try to establish some kind of defensive presence in this game as well. It's a high total for a Memphis game, 205, so I was thinking about that one, the under 205 in OKC Memphis. And I was also thinking about the under in Denver San Antonio. It was 206.5. 202.5 on the overnight. Now those gotten bet up to 208.5. Spurs are playing well, but they've been trending under recently, having a lot of games where like they score 105, opponent scored 90, something like that. And so I'm thinking that the under might still be a good play in that one. 208.5. Do you have anything to say about any of those three totals, Troy?
Yeah, no, especially on the Memphis Oklahoma City, it's a tough one. As we do know, Memphis plays pretty darn good defense, especially at home. And I think this is one of the few teams that really does have matchups for Westbrook. Tony Allen, one of the better defenders in this league. Mike Conley plays extremely good defense. That, to me, could be an under bet. We'll get to that a little bit later in our pick segment. But, and then also, I do like the over in that Washington-New York game. That's a low total. I know New York's defense is about as horrendous as it gets. Washington playing a little bit better, as we talked about, better at home. They're trying to get some consistency going. I could see them having a heyday against that New York defense. And even if they get into that 105, 110 margin and the Knicks can get in higher 90s, that game goes way over. So I like the over in that game. Don't necessarily have a huge opinion on the other ones, but I would tend to agree on where your leans are at.
All right, interesting card. Thanks so much for your thoughts, Troy West. Now let's move on to part two, the picks.